All right, guys, don't forget to check us out online, therevolutiontv.com. There you're going to find full episodes, links to our Twitter, Facebook. Reach out to us. You're not alone. therevolutiontv.com. There you're also going to see a link to my new book, No More Rejection. Definitely check it out.
In and out of abusive relationships most of her life, Michele Hunter thought she had finally found a good Christian man. After all, Tommy had promised that he was going to be her Boaz. But what ended up happening in their young marriage, they lost their jobs, the rage escalated while they tried to keep their front in ministry intact. It was too much. Tommy continued to minister, having success, but at home, Michele and their two girls were fearful for their lives, walking on eggshells.
Every relationship, and I'd only been in a few in my life, but every single one of them was very abusive, and very physically abusive, very verbally abusive, emotionally abusive. It was like I went from, I love you. It was like I went from. It was like every man was the same. They looked different or whatever, but the internal, the core was the same. So here comes this Christian man, and there was no difference though. I mean, he sat in church and he preached and he was anointed and people got saved and set free, but there was no transformation inside of him. I was devastated because 6-7 years previous, I came out of an abusive relationship and was determined never to go back there. So I spent those years working on myself and my relationship with God, and really determining that my life was going to be different. It wasn't going to be the same old thing it had always been, which was abuse and drugs, and I lived a crazy life. And when he came home that first day and really showed me what was really going on inside of him, I have to say I was in a state of desperation. I was completely desperate. I couldn't believe I was back there. And it was shortly after that I started taking pills. At first it was Somas, and I had been clean from drugs for many, many years. And but I started taking Somas, and I think I was taking maybe 4, maybe 6, maybe 8 a day, just to be numb. Just so that I didn't have to really pay attention to what was going on in my house, because it was so unstable and it was so volatile.
You were in ministry at the time?
We had started a high school ministry. We were the leaders, and we were also doing jail ministry at the same time. So, but my Soma use turned into Ambien. Ambien is a sleeping pill, but I was taking it all day long. So I was probably taking sometimes 4, 5, 6 Ambien a day, not sleeping, just so that I wouldn't feel anything.
I remember we went out one night, and we were going out to dinner. It was going to be a nice dinner. We ended up going here in Orange County, and we had a few drinks, and Christians, And I remember Michele got pretty hammered, and she wanted to go shoe shopping. And I'm like, and Michele loves shoes. Like, I love shoes too, but like I don't want to go in public after I've been drinking. So it just escalated into a brawl, and where I got super verbal. I said things to her that no man should ever say to a woman, ever. And I remember some of this was in public. Some of it was
in our car.
And when we're driving in the car, so we're drunk driving. We're yelling. I say that she starts hitting on me, and I just remember this was it. This was a defining moment, as I just reached over and I just punched her right in the face. And so at that moment, I realized what I did. She was in panic mode. She got out of the car, and we didn't see each other again.
It was. I had been through so many experiences like that before in my life. So to go through this with him, although he had physically. Try to smother me in a pillow or, grab me by the neck and things like that. He never hit me before. And so this night when he punched me in the face, my lip is bleeding, and I had to get out of the car in the middle of an intersection and go into a restaurant and call the police and have my kids come get me. It was really awful. And I determined that night, I'm done. I'm done with this relationship. I'm done with this man. This is ridiculous. And it was and I was such a victim. I was such a victim in my own mind because of my whole life and everything I'd gone through. And now with him, and I expected so much more from him than he could give, you know. And my victim mentality really took me to a place where God couldn't even work in me because everything was his fault and everything was because of him. He went to jail that night.
I did.
And you know, my kids and I we had to sleep in a hotel, and it was, the whole thing was just really traumatic.
You know, I want to say about the jail thing, and this is the grace of God. Like this really rocked me to my core. Where I get into jail, and they book me, and they take me, and the cops are like, "Wow, you're being so nice," because I know how to front. You know,
how to manipulate.
I know how to fake it really well, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember when I got up and went through the whole process, got up to my bunk, and all these guys that were believers, did not know that I was a believer, but came over and said, "Man, can we pray with you? Let's read the Bible together." And I just, in that moment, just knew that that was the grace of God, and that I had done something really stupid, but yet God's grace was just like on me that night, not approving what I did, but still His grace was still there. Just an amazing touch from a Father who saw into my despair.
But it was 2 days after he went to jail. I'm on Facebook, and I see this post, and it's from all of these kids that we were leaders of from this ministry in Arizona. They had come to California, and there was all of these posts all over Facebook, how they were all hooking up with Tommy and how wonderful Tommy was, and how they were going to have tacos with Tommy, and everybody was so excited. And I'm like, yeah, no, none of those people know you just got out of jail for hitting your wife. You know what I mean?
So
It created in me a bitterness that rooted so deep. And I think I have had a lot of things in my life to be bitter about and to be broken about. But this created something new in me, and it was deep, and it was ugly, and it was really dark.
I remember walking down the beach with a mutual friend of ours, Brian Head Welch. And Brian and I were walking down the beach one day, and it wasn't a romantic stroll or anything, you know, but we were walking down the beach, and he just looked at me and he just said, "Tommy, you're just faking it. You're just faking it till you make it." He says, "Man, you really need to try to make it, you know." And I just love.
He didn't even know. He
had no clue any of this was going on.
We faked it well in front of him.
Yeah. And this is a guy who like stayed with us and
multiple times. He was in our house for days and days and days.
But I remember the last time he stayed with us, he could sense something was going on, and he left. And I remember he went somewhere and prayed for us, and I was just so grateful to have a friend like that, you know. But even after that, and hanging out with those guys and hanging all these ministry people, I still would not tell anybody what had happened. I was still, in my own pride, faking. I was a fake believer is what I was. I was just a fake Christian, you know what I mean? Like trying to be something that I really wasn't. But desperately inside wanted to, that fake it to make it. I was desperately wanting to make it though. That was really where my heart was driving towards.
God started working in my heart about having nothing to do with him, but about me, and how he showed me how I had become a god to myself in all of these areas where I had such pain and such trauma, and I protected those areas, and so he couldn't heal them. He couldn't fix anything because I actually protected. I held on to them like they were something valuable. So instead of going to God with all of that pain and all of that trauma, I hoarded it. And it damaged me, and God started working on those things and started changing me and started showing me how I needed to be set free of so many things, and I was. And this is all in the midst of my son. I was 7 months pregnant when he passed away. So this is all in the midst of that. So I had a choice. It was either really just give my whole life to God, just really lay it down and finally give it to him, or go walk the other way. And thank God I made the right choice. But after about 3 months of God intensively working in me, I received divorce papers, and it was about 4 months from our divorce being final, and I started reading these papers, and God said to me, he said, "Michele, you need to start praying for your husband, and you need to start believing for restoration of your marriage." And he took me into this amazing, like maybe 45-minute intimate time with him, where he showed me through these eyes that came down into my heart and my understanding how he loves Tommy. And he showed me how he sees Tommy. And it took every bit of pain, and it took every root of bitterness, and it took it out of me. And that love so wrecked me that it took the bitterness, and it took the pain, and it took everything negative towards him, and there was so much, and it was so deep, and it was so dark. It took it, and it replaced my understanding of my husband, not through my eyes, but through God's eyes. And God said to me, Michele, if you don't pray for him, who will?
Yeah.
And he said, you start believing for restoration of your marriage. And it was the most crazy thing that's ever happened to me, because I knew I had a word from the Lord, and I knew that my marriage was going to be restored. I did not care who I saw him with. I did not care that he had 3 or 4 or 10. It didn't matter to me, because I knew what God had told me. And I knew God wouldn't ask me or tell me to start believing for restoration if it wasn't going to happen. And then I started praying that God would and it was every day, Lord, bring somebody into his life today who will speak truth to him, that he will receive truth from. I was praying over his ears, Lord, that they would be able to hear your voice through this person who's going to speak truth to him, that his feet will be in the right place at the right time.
We want to thank Tommy and Michele for being on the show, and thank you for being so transparent and sharing what's going on. I mean, a lot of people struggle at home, and they have one front in ministry, but another front at home. God knows we've been through some tough times, and it's hard when you're in ministry and you get attacks and you have to come home and you still have to be genuine and have love. I want to encourage you guys that home is your first ministry. Everything you're doing outside of home, that's second. That does not replace your ministry of being at home.
Amen.
With your wife, with your children, save your energy. I work in corporate America as well. I lead a team. And sometimes I have to remind myself, I have to save energy when I come home so I can minister to my family and be loving. I don't do it all the time. I fail every once in a while, but I try to really give them the best when I come home and when I wake up in the morning. And so today I want to challenge you fathers out there that are coming home from work, make sure you save your best for your family.
Yeah, their testimony really hit home personally. I was really paying close attention to Michele and how vulnerable she got. She felt like she had a victim mentality. Do you remember that she mentioned that? You know, as I was hearing her describe why she felt she had that, I started thinking, oh my goodness, I feel like I have been living under that cloud most of my life, where you put up so many walls of defense because you feel like you've got this. And you also feel like people owe you something, just being real vulnerable. But it had actually pushed God away, and it impeded his healing in her heart. Well, we cannot have that. If we want to have a peaceful, impactful life, you have to surrender every part of yourself and mentally how you see yourself and react to others. So I'm just asking you, if that hit home for you as well, perhaps you're a mom, maybe you've gone through some really rough relationships, let's take a moment and just surrender that to the Lord. Let him give you a new identity, renew your mind, and walk that out. You will be so surprised the healing that comes from that and what you'll find yourself to start doing new. You'll start praying for people, and you won't be as offended as you used to be. Now that's a purposeful life. Thank you guys so much for watching. We love you, and if God is for you, who can be against you?